Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Donnie here, and I'm back with another installment of my classic movie spotlight series. So, in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of my favorites. I'm going to be just giving a list of some of my favorite films of all time and the various different genres. I have 13 different categories of genres that I'm going to be speaking about, and I picked one film for each category of what my favorite is there. So I know most of my videos have been about older movies and that, but I don't only enjoy like older old time films. I do, you know, I don't discriminate against newer films, and there will be several, more contemporary films in this list. So I'm gonna get started. We go in alphabetical order. The first category is action. What my favorite action movie is, and that would be The Dark Knight. Another one of the more contemporary films. I went to go see The Dark Knight with my friends when it came out, and I fell in love with it. It was just an action-packed, thrill ride of a film. It's a longer movie; it's over 2.5 hours, but it's very enthralling and just keeps you, glued to your seat. There's a great action sequences and a great story, and obviously, everyone remembers from this movie is the great performance by Heath Ledger. The movie came out a couple of months after he died, and he wound up winning the Oscar posthumously for his performance, and uh, so and it's one of the greatest film performances I ever saw, and I just it was just he delivers such a deeply unsettling performance as the Joker. It was just so maniacal, and there's like nothing's ever gonna top that. So it's and just just he's just a key part of an overall great film. My next category I'll be talking about is animated. My favorite animated movie was one of my favorite movies as a kid, called Toy Story. The Toy Story films have been, there's been a lot of acclaim and extremely popular from different generations. Like it's nice, like the first movie I grew up on and saw as a kid, and I remember having a toy Woody doll and a Buzz Lightyear, and now like my niece and nephew, and particularly my nephew, really loves Toy Stories, and it's funny how a lot of these movies, they're movies for kids, but the filmmakers kind of know that adults, parents, and aunts and uncles are going to be watching these movies with them, so they kind of throw in little jokes for the adults. One of my favorites, I remember in the original Toy Stories, all the toys are talking about what company made them, and Rex, the dinosaur toy, says that he was made by Mattel, but then he says, I was actually made by a smaller company that got bought out by Mattel. So it's just a funny little thing. And of course, one of the reasons why I love this is because is the voice of Mr. Potato Head is the legendary Don Rickles, who I am just a huge fan of, and he was one of my icons that I always looked up to, and it admired him, and he's just so hilarious as Mr. Potato Head. Uh, so my next genre is Christmas. My favorite Christmas movie also happens to be one of my two favorite movies of all time. I'm gonna get to the other one later, and this is a movie called A Christmas Story. Everyone knows this movie. This is a movie I've probably seen more than any other movie in my lifetime. The marathon on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I will turn it on and watch it all day and watch as many, even though I know exactly what happens every time, I'll still keep watching and watching. It's such a warm-hearted, and it's funny and nostalgic, and it's just the ultimate feel-good movie. It just, fills me with joy. That's the best way I can describe it. And, I love Darren McGavin as the old man. Just has such a brilliant performance and his hilarious facial expressions. He's great. And I'll get into more of this probably around Christmas time. I'll do a whole video on this movie too. So the next category is comedy. Comedy is my all-time favorite genre of film, and there are several films that were in the running for this, but my all-time favorite comedy comes from one of the legends of the comedic world, Mel Brooks. It was a little film he did called Spaceballs. I love Spaceballs. It's a hilarious spoof of Star Wars. I'm not really the biggest Star Wars fan. In fact, if anyone asks me about it, I always say Spaceballs is better. It's just so hilarious, so just great pop culture references and great performances, particularly by two of my all-time favorite actors, Rick Moranis and John Candy. They just steal every scene that they're in. Rick Moranis as Dark Helmet. He's just so hilarious. In this movie, he deserved like an Oscar nomination for it. He was great. So my next genre is documentary. What my favorite documentary is, and it was actually a HBO documentary I saw that I have on DVD called Mr. Warmth: The Don Rickles Project. I just got done talking about how much I love Don Rickles, so obviously a documentary all about his life was going to be right on my alley, and this film features. Clips of his great career and all his appearances and whatnot, and interviews with people he worked with and people who admired him. And it also features him performing on stage, and where you really see him at work. It's just a very intimate portrayal and just very funny. Next would be drama. I admit drama is not exactly my favorite genre of film, so but there are a couple that I do like, and my favorite drama movie would probably be called American History X. It was a movie from 1998 about man about a neo-Nazi skinhead who goes to prison, but then when he comes out of prison, he's reformed. He's turned back from his old life, but he sees his younger brother heading down the same path as he was, and he wants to try and stop that. So it's a heart wrenching film. It's really it's not an easy watch. It's not a so-called enjoyable film, but it features a great performance by Ed Norton. He's just when he's such a racist and anti-Semitic and sexist and all these awful things, and he's just a scary character. But then you see the development of him learning to shed his ways. It's a brilliant performance and a great film. Next would be fantasy. Now, fantasy is also not really my cup of tea. I'm not that into the whole Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings type, but I'm gonna but my favorite fantasy movie would probably have to be The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, which I did do a video on. I believe it's Classic Movie Spotlight Episode 4, where I elaborate more on that film. It's about a woman who moves into a house that's haunted by the ghost of the former owner, but and they wind up developing this connection together. And even though it's a ghost, it's not a scary movie by any means, it's um, it's a nice little sweet film, and it has a number of fantastical elements that I was able to qualify it in this category. So next would be horror. Now horror probably is like my favorite genre next to comedy. I love horror movies, any kind of horror movie. But particularly, I love slasher movies like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that. But my all time favorite horror movie would have to be the original Halloween. It's just such. a thrilling film, so suspenseful. And the funny thing about it is that it features very little uh, blood and gore. There's nothing. There's virtually none in the whole movie, and it's much more about building suspense. And as Michael Myers is, the psychopath and track, stalking of these people, and it's very unnerving. Has a number of creepy scenes. It's just extremely well done and has a great film score. It's one of the best film scores I've ever heard. So now there's something completely different going on. Next is musicals. I do have a soft spot for musicals, probably because I used to perform in my high school plays, so it's a little nostalgia factor there. But and there's a number of musicals that I like, but probably my favorite all-time musical film would be The Music Man. It's a film about a traveling salesman who's a con artist who comes to this small town and says that he's going to try he's going to try to start a marching band for the youth, but he's going to get the money to for the equipment and uniforms, but he plans to just take off with the money. Uh, but his plan is kind of foiled when he falls in love with the local town library, and it has a number of great musical performances. Like the '76 trombone song is very popular, and Buddy Hackett plays an excellent comedic relief character, and he has one of the funniest songs ever called "Shapoopy." Uh, you should check it out. So next will be romance. There's a number. For romance, I go with a romantic comedy from the '80s called 16 Candles. It's about a girl named Samantha Baker whose family forgets about her 16th birthday because her older sister getting married that weekend, and she also has a crush on a boy named Jake Ryan, and it kind of deals with high school crushes and romance, and so it's a nice, sweet little story, but also very, very funny. You know, Granted, today, like, it's been re-examined, and they say how it's not how some of it hasn't held up as far as like stereotypical characters and some cringy situations, particularly with the character of Long Duck Dong. But it, I'm able to look past that, and I still find enjoyment in this film. Next would be sci-fi. And for sci-fi, I picked kind of a sci-fi spoof movie. It's a movie called Killer Clowns from Outer Space. If you're not sure what it's about, essentially the whole plot is right in the title. It's about killer clowns from outer space, and it's cheesy, but it's meant to be cheesy. It's such a great parody film. It's so hilarious, and it's just and I may do a video on this one. It's just an unbelievable film. Not exactly state of the art science fiction, like visual effect elements, but that's what makes it so endearing. It's so funny. Um, Next, thriller. For thriller, I'm gonna get to now my other all-time favorite movie, and that would be Jaws. I have a whole video. It was my first classic movie spotlight video on Jaws, so I won't get that much into it. But Jaws is just one of those unbelievable films that I can watch any at a time, and just so suspenseful and so thrilling. And so if you want to learn more about Jaws, watch my video on it before. And lastly, Western. Now, for Western, kind of like sci-fi, I picked a Western spoof movie, but my all-time favorite Western would have to be uh, what Blazing Saddles from Mel Brooks. Yeah, it is a comedy, but it's still a Western, and it's an excellent spoof. I do touch on Blazing Saddles in one of my previous videos too, so it's very funny, but also a great satire, and really talks about the issues of racism and makes it very interesting. Very thought provoking film as well, despite also being hilarious. So that's it. This is a little bit longer video than usual, but those are my favorite movies in all those different genres. Let me know what are some of your favorites and your favorite genres and least favorite genres, but your favorite films and the different ones. So let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, all the works, and until next time, take it easy.